Nance, you remember my cousins, Stuart and Luba?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I know. I thought you guys were going to sit inside.
well, he wanted us to be up here. Yes. We figured we'd take the third row.
Hi there. How are you? Good, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Today they're just shattered mess. Yeah, so we're
Now she has 15. Her age.
so they don't put like
Hi, sweetheart. Hi. How you doing? Mike? Good. How are you? I'm very good. Thank you. Good to see you.
That's my even with the self-focused camera.
You know what? I just, yeah, all I do.
Have you done that?
My feet are so bad. And these Brooks, yeah. You know, it's gotta be $140. But, yeah. Or something more, yeah. I don't need sunglasses. I don't need them. I know.
I know.
It's already, yes, you know, and I wasn't
I mean, I have the meter. But yeah, it was fun having it all.
Yeah. I mean, I still pull mine out and, anymore.
Yeah.
Walking around the whole day, but it's fun because it's my birthday.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, I got that.
How's your heart?
Grab a chair. Grab a chair.
I don't think I'm around.
I know it's hard working in the grass. It's really uneven.
Yeah. Flat.
It's out here. Yeah.
I just see it, but you look beautiful.
I don't not say that.
No, I will say. It,
Like that.
it's not that to be. It's messy.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Are you thinking?
Yeah. No, please, no. You and your family are gonna walk around.
That's good.
Not that most people do.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe the family that we get to see our lives together. It's amazing. I wasn't sure if you'd be here.
I know, I wasn't sure if you were seeing it either.
I'm so happy to see you. I should have brought her.
Oh, I was looking at her picture. I was looking at your pictures yesterday and I'm like, how do we deal with this?
No.
Because
Hi, honey.
I don't know.
So I don't know if you know, my daughter is 3 months older than you.
How are you?
And we were pregnant at the same time. And we were hanging when we were your age.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that last night.
We met probably as many times when it solved bar mitzvah. So then we became fast friends, and then you flew out to stay with me for like a couple weeks. So I'm really like taking out.
It was
a little
fun.
older than you.
It was the summer before freshman year, wasn't it?
Should have been doing it.
But, you know,
I remember you came out, you had a terrible headache.
I still get that. I've been getting them more again. It's stress. So
I flew out for the baby, for my baby shower.
yes, and you were just a little bump in my.
Get over here. I
don't even think I was showing you.
I mean, I was like,
Yeah, you were.
thank you. I was putting food and things on it. Thank you.
That was the best. Just like put a bowl in there. I was like, what do you have on the table? There's one.
I know. I was waiting for her.
So that's a problem. State church.
Yeah, the little one. Oh,
Oh my gosh. You're close. She's like me though. Like, she hasn't been to college yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Although, just I'm gonna do secret. For you, I'm sure. Yeah. So are you in Massachusetts now? How do you like it? Good luck. It's like all over the place.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Because you were all the way back to Wisconsin. Yeah. Old money. Yeah. Yeah.
He's been worse.
I think that's the point. Should not talk about. There's so
You would be shocked to see Ryan. We just went on vacation yesterday. He was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6'2". Holy smokes.
Yeah.
He's a big boy.
So,
Oh, that's
they're
fun.
Texas. They want to sit down. They're on it. There's more than like Charlie. Charlie younger. Yeah. So she just got there. She said she said listen all the time. But I just remember you really bonding with Ryan. Like yeah. You know, now you transfer things out of her childhood. And so when she started, the course was very hello. She literally started school. No friends. Everybody was remote. It was really interesting to see how they make friends. Yeah. Luba, I don't know if you're doing that. Luba made a month.
IRL or
Oh, I've taken away the milk in our house.
how are you? What's amazing?
What I've noticed is when she doesn't and engaged and she doesn't. Just so that we did. So we got married like a week apart. You guys were Labor Day. Yes.
So we were, that was when our story was.
Yeah, because you guys got married. Yep.
We were September.
Yes.
Hi,
Yes. And what if we ended up not doing anything? What if we could do that? What's the next story? That's on our street. Something else was going on. I don't know. Oh, so we had literally this was the third, so I was like,
They were asking.
so gross. I told you.
They needed to.
I had confidence in them considering one of the service.
And I think what happened is, people say, well, how is it in Mexico?
It's going good.
Yeah. Mom missed you so much. It keeps you. That's where it all happened. You're gonna get your lunch now.
Okay.
Judy.
Okay, so I think right December, shuffle my birthday. All right, be back.
Gary.
This is really oh.
Analyze it and think about it. It was. It's still the unexpected. No matter how you despair, it's still. Nobody ever asked you. No.
Yeah.
I did too.
It's cool out there. Right. I don't care. You know what? Jimmy's
doing all right. Because Samantha told me and I was shocked.
he's got a weekly treatment. But it lasts for 5 or 6 weeks. And, he's only done the first one, but he feels good. He's gonna make you real him, but I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, I think so. We're gonna pray. You'll be okay.
I sent him, so there's supposed to be like a virtual or video link. So I sent it to all of my siblings.
Yeah, there is they are streaming.
Yeah. So
I like your
you can wave to them. Oh, natural.
But I love it. It looks kind of blind. It's nice. She looks great.
So I appreciate it. So did you finally retire? How are your eyes? Your hair?
I'm dealing with she was so excited about it. I was waiting for her. I was sitting there waiting. I saw I never knew she was right. But yeah, she has her own city. Oh, thank you. This is Dee.
I'm very good. You're much better than I am. You did.
That's impressive. She had me out. I don't know. I've been safe, but I'm running into right. I'm serious.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are upon service time. No, they're here.
They're here in case somebody wants. They would do duty. Judy, come sit here. I'll sit over here.
Where's Red?
Oh, that's nice. Of course, I've got the Shiva, the Shiva candles. Give you right there. But the chairs are movable, guys. We can really rearrange and put you closer if you want. All right.
I saw David. Whatever you could do the result.
Hey, hello. I'm gonna sit there, but I didn't take my I'm not somebody. Such a over here. Okay. Thanks for being here. I second. Oh, that's right. I'll tell you, you just dressed me. Oh, this is good. Been doing for a while.
Chill, I
Oh, okay. Is that closer? It's not closer. It's not closer. But that was not. Oh. I never want to be there again.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones. You know, today is a very special time to be buried, as you know, during a Yom Tov, which is why we didn't stop along the way. Normally we would stop. And even the memorial prayer later will be different. But the two psalms that I'm going to sing are often connected to a funeral, but they talk about rest. This time that the 23rd Psalm is more than David. Talks about God giving us repose next to water and green pastures. First, Ashet Chayil. Ashet Chayil Bipeninim michra Batach baleva Bishalal lo yechsar Bismolet David Adonai roi echsar binoteshe yarbitseni almei menchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovet Yancheni b'maglet tzedek Hoy leman shemo Kama ki elech b'ketz al mavet Lo yira ra Ki ata imadi Shivtecha Umishanetecha Hema Yenachamuni Ta'aroch Lefanai Shulchan Neked Soda Tishan Davashemen Roshi Kosir Baya Ach Tova Chesed Yildefuni Kol Yemei Chayam V'shaveti B'beit Adonai Leorech Yami.
Sometimes I like to do a slightly different translation so I can hear the words differently, let them in deeper. The Psalm of David. This is translation of Canticle 6, Psalm 23. The Eternal is my shepherd. I shall never be in need. The Eternal is my shepherd. Why should I be in need? Amid the choicest grasses does God set me down. God leads me by the calmest waters and restores my soul. God takes me along paths of righteousness in keeping with the honor of God's name. Even should I wander in a valley of the darkest shadows, I fear no evil. For you are with me, God. Your power and support are there to comfort me. You set in front of me a table in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup is overflowing. Surely good and loving kindness will pursue me all the days of my life. And I shall come to dwell inside the house of the Eternal for a length of days. So I'm Rabbi Stephen Booth Nadav. I'm the chaplain at Kavod Senior Life, where Luba was, as many of the residents are saying in the last 24 hours, was a mainstay, they say. They use the word mainstay. She was a mainstay. By the way, she didn't become a mainstay by stopping. So that was appropriate. She didn't become a mainstay by being some, the president of the resident council. Anything like that. How did she become a mainstay? She became a mainstay with her attitude. She became a mainstay by spreading welcome and joy everywhere she went. And there's not a resident at Kavod, all 400 residents, that didn't get a smile from her at some point. I remember her when she turned 90 saying, why am I still here? And then just laughing, her whole body laughing. She loved every week to go get her hair done and go shopping. At 94. What a gift. Well, I was talking to Judy, you were saying, what a gift that she gave you. What a gift. So we're during the week where my favorite phrase we get to say in Judaism is, as we say, Moadim L'Simcha. May these intermediate days be days of joy. This is known as Zman Simchatenu, the season of our joy. So there's lots of complications and problems to dying in this period in terms of our rituals. But for Luba, to die during Zman Simchatenu, it's perfect. May these days honor her spirit. And may the sunshine remind us of the sunshine of her smile and her laugh and her welcome and her love that I'm sure everybody here experienced. As did the residents at Kavod who are watching this for the first time. We have residents gathered in our shul watching this on the live stream. So thanks to Rodman for broadcasting. So I'm going to conclude my words, but open more words with a short story. King Solomon was quoted as saying, "The day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth." The day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth? How can that be? The Midrash explains that when a person is born, everyone is happy and celebrates. But when a person dies, everyone cries. It really should not be this way. For when a person is born, there should be no rejoicing because no one knows what will happen to the person or what direction they will go. The person could go the way of the righteous, or the person could be evil and go the way of the wicked. When a person dies, there is a cause to rejoice if the person departs with a good name and leaves the world in peace. To what can this be likened? A parable can be drawn to two ships that sailed on a great sea, one leaving the harbor and the other entering it. Everyone cheered the ship that sailed out of the harbor, but nobody rejoiced over the ship that entered. A shrewd person was there, and she said, "My view is the exact opposite of yours. There's no reason to rejoice over the ship that is leaving the harbor because no one knows what will be its fate or the terrible seas or storms it might encounter. But everyone should cheer the ship that is entering the harbor because it left the seas peacefully and returned to the harbor safely." And that is what Solomon meant when he said, "And the day of death is better than the day of birth." So let us hold a space in our hearts to celebrate Luba's safe arrival back in port. Hers was a great journey filled with much life. She truly did depart with a good name and left the world in peace. Welcome home, Luba. You will be missed.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rabbi Chaitzovsky from BMHBJ. One thing I believe we can all agree on is that no one expected to be here today. The news that Luba Rodman, the sister of Helen Klein and Lillian Levitt, both of blessed memory, of Leonard Levitt, Henrietta Raisin, Hershey Levitt, mother of Kathy Pollock, Judy Saltzman, and Randy Rodman, grandmother of Serena Pollock, Alana Hammer, David Pollock, Saul Saltzman, Rebecca Saltzman, Rachel Bell and Laura Nelson, and great-grandmother to Noah, Auden, Julian, Abigail, Ori, Leith, Casey, Colt, Brian, Charlie, and Fox. The news that she passed away on Tuesday shocked everyone. It's true that she was 94, but still, she seemed a prime candidate to live forever. She was sharp and spry, active and engaged. At painting, Wii bowling, tennis and football loving, dreidel spinning, Zoom chatting, excursion taking, beloved Queen Bee at Kavod, where she lived for many years. And then while on one of those excursions, just like that, she was gone. Our tradition is fully aware of the fragility of life, often using the phrase keheref ayin, in the blink of an eye, to describe the delicate nature of our time here on earth. Coming so soon after the high holy days when we wondered out loud, mi yichyeh, who will live, umi yamut, and who will die. Luba's passing hits us in the kishkas and makes us all aware of the fleeting nature of our own existence in real time. So we're gathered now, and our task before us is to remember her. We have already heard from her rabbi, my friend and colleague, Stephen Booth Nadav. In a few moments, we'll hear from people who knew her best, her children. But first, I would like to take the opportunity to offer my own perspective on this loving and lovely woman, Luba Rodman. We had not seen each other in some time, but whenever I did see Luba, as has been mentioned, she was smiling. She would always greet me with a full, genuine smile. But as I've come to learn, Luba had more than one smile. She also had what might be called a wry, I told you so smile, usually employed when offering her opinion or responding to something someone may have said that she totally disagreed with. The fact is, you always knew where you stood with Luba. She said what she meant and meant what she said. She could employ a no-nonsense, almost royal, I am right, and you know it, smile. She was not shy and had a strong personality. Of course, she saved her warmest and widest smiles for each of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. They really were the apples of her eye. I mentioned the ever-present smile at the very beginning of my conversation with Luba's 3 children in my office yesterday. And it was then that I learned some things about Luba that I will admit I never knew before. Fact is, Luba's life was not always an easy one. At almost every stage of life, Luba navigated more than her fair share of challenges, struggles, heartbreak, and heartache. The details are not really important anymore, but they underscore the truth of the saying, and it's a saying each of us should remember. Everyone is going through something they don't talk about. Everyone is going through something you know nothing about. Luba's response to all of this was to face whatever came her way with strength, determination, pluck, and with very little complaining. That smile that each of us saw, that smile that she offered so willingly to the 400 residents at one point or another at Kavod, that smile that you may have seen, was her red badge of courage. There was so much about her life that was like an artist crafting a masterpiece. Even with all that tried to shake her from her path, she never let anything get in the way. And I'm reminded of a story that I know I've shared before, but in the context today, I think is very appropriate. There was once a king who owned an enormous and very beautiful diamond. Every day, the king took the diamond from its jewel-encrusted box and looked at it with awe as the gem transformed sunlight into magnificent, shimmering kaleidoscopes of color. It made him very happy. One day, the king noticed something about the diamond. The king noticed a long, jagged scratch down one side of the stone and had no idea how it had gotten there. Horrified and dismayed, he immediately called upon his royal jewelers to repair the gem, but they were unable to do so. The king then called upon other jewelers from other lands near and far, but none were able to repair the diamond as the king wanted. Finally, a pauper appeared at the palace and said that he could repair the king's jewel. The king and his advisors were wary at first, but realizing they had nothing to lose, they invited the pauper to proceed. The pauper requested to work totally in private. He retreated to a small cell dedicated to this task, and after working for an entire week, emerged and handed the king the diamond. Sitting upon his throne, the king looked at the diamond and smiled with delight and held up the jewel for all to see. People expected the scratch to disappear. The pauper had not removed the jagged line at all. Instead, he had etched an image of a rose onto one end of it, making the scratch into the stem of a beautiful flower, making the diamond even more beautiful and uniquely so than before. Some wounds don't go away, but some people just have a knack of knowing how to handle them. And they can make the wounded even more beautiful than before. With everything that I learned, and perhaps only members of the family knew, that smile and whatever joy and happiness and joking and good times and love, and Liba's name means love, means the heart. And our tradition says, Rahmana Liba Ba'i. God wants the heart. Luba had a great heart. And that heart is now on its journey, and it's going to be placed in a special box right near God's throne. I'm sure that Luba is going to be wagging her finger at God every now and then and giving God a piece of her very interesting mind. But the fact is, she will be ensconced in a very, very special place, basking in God's glory and making sure that we, those who knew and loved her, will be able to benefit from a little of God's glory in a way that we could only have imagined up until this day. She is gone, but will never be forgotten. Tehei nishmatat surah b'sara chayim. May her soul be ever bound up in the bond of eternal life. The Lord is her portion. May she ever rest in peace. And we all say, Amen. I'm going to call upon her children to offer some brief words, and I believe, I don't want to say we're going to go in age order, because I don't know what that is, but I'm just going to guess. Well, the lady in red, well, Kathy, you want to come first? You want to speak first? Okay.
My mom loved her baby. When my oldest daughter, Serena, was born, she spit up on my mom's shirt, and my mom refused to wash it. She also had a great love for Rafael Nadal and was very worried that he was getting too old to compete and that he would be hurt. One of the stories that I can remember is a few years ago, she thought she was having a heart attack, and I was getting ready to take her to the emergency room. And as I was closing the door, she looked at me and said, "You have no lipstick on. You look terrible." "Mom, I wore lipstick today for you." There's a story about how when one dies, they were put in a boat and set a sail in the sea. And everyone was crying and very sad. And as the boat went out of sight, it turned the corner. And people were saying, "Here she comes, here she comes." "Mom, you came. And they're going to love you and be with you forever."
Judy.
First of all, I just have to thank all of you so very much for being here and honoring my mom and honoring us. And from the bottom of our hearts, I thank you for being here. I was thinking this morning about my mother, Luba. Luba didn't need a last name. Nobody has to remember her last name. She was just Luba. Luba Rodman, Mom, Aunt Luba, Lubachka, Grandma, and as our youngest grandson affectionately used to call her when he was a little guy, Gamma Booba. Just a couple of stories that I'm going to share. A number of years ago, my mother taught friends of mine and myself to play mahjong. As soon as we grasped the game and felt comfortable, we had asked my mom to join us for a weekly game. Well, my mother was sharp, and she was just a great mahjong player. And she also remembered, because she had the memory of an elephant, hands that we went out on weeks prior. So when it was time to discard a tile, she'd say, "Here, Judy, you want this. You like to play this hand. Or you just went out on this hand a few weeks ago. "Here, Carol, isn't this the hand you play?" She would remember hands that we played from a month ago. She was 20 plus years older than we are. We couldn't remember a game that we played just the hand before. But that was my mother. COVID was really a difficult time for all of us, but I think it was more difficult for people living in senior living. They had really no social life. They were pretty much restricted to their own apartments. There was no dinner in the dining room. There were no more activities. But Kavod, thank God, they really provided nice activities by Zoom. And my mother learned to do it. She was very proud of herself that she could navigate Zoom on the computer. And she took art classes. They would deliver the supplies the night before, and she would bring them in, and she would make these little projects on Zoom and just all kinds of cute things. She read books, and she was in a theater group, and they did it all on Zoom, and she just had so much fun. It was wonderful. And so because they didn't go to the grocery store, I got the honor of bringing her groceries every week. So at the very beginning of COVID, she comes out, we're all masked, and we kept our distance. And I was just so happy to see her, and she was happy to see me. It was just a precious moment that we shared. And I said, "Oh, Mom, you look so cute." And she said, "Well, I knew you were coming. I put makeup on." And I said, "Well, I knew I was coming. I put a bra on." And we just started laughing. And it was just a wonderful, tender moment that even in these hard times, we could just take time out and just laugh. But like was stated before, more than anything, Luba's priority was her family, her kids, the joy of her grandchildren, and a super great bonus was great-grandchildren. She loved them all, and they loved her. My mom was a survivor that survived a lot of adversity. She became a single working mom after her divorce. She managed to live within her budget. There were definitely difficult times, but we never, ever saw her having a pity party. She never complained. She was the ever-ready battery that kept plugging along, and she always greeted people with a wonderful smile and a great attitude. Was it all fun and games? Of course not. But I'm grateful and blessed to have a mom that demonstrated strength, motivation, and determination. I'd call that a great role model. Thanks, Mom. Your life was well spent, impacting the lives of so many. You will live on with our hearts, within our hearts, and memories forever. Thanks.
Okay, I think Vegas has odds at 40% that I could get through this. If you're betting now, take the under. And I'm not going to sing for you. You're welcome. But I am going to start just a song that's always touched me that starts 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? You know it, midnights and cups of coffee. Well, with Luba, it was measured in love. That's all I can say about it. But then if you take 525,600 minutes, multiply it by 94, you have the national deficit. So, rabbis, I apologize in advance. I know you know my sisters, but you'll see why I was kicked out of Hebrew school. Because we told you, my mom said what she felt, and the apple doesn't fall from the tree. Luba was a badass. She was. She lived on her terms. You know, she
had her insecurities, like all of us. I probably lead the pack on that. But she was strong, resilient, didn't complain. Like it's already been brought up, except about her hearing aids. There's some complaining. At 94, she didn't let time pass her by, like the video calls. So during COVID, we had a Friday night FaceTime call. Every call started the same. Hi, Iran. And then there's my punum. Well, I'm not the punum. The punum's my dog, Dexter, who had to be on every call. So, on her 94th birthday, we go to lunch. I post a picture of her. And she says, she calls me a day later and goes, Randy, we got over 100 likes. And I go, yeah, Mom. So, you're loved out there. She goes, yeah, must be Judy's friends. On that note, I can't go without. Judy, you are her rock. I can't ever repay you or thank you for how happy and comfortable you made her life. So Luba was mostly supportive of me growing up through sports, but she didn't like me playing Little League football. And I remember her on the sideline, take him out, take him out. Thing is, I wasn't that good, so I wasn't in that much anyway. But then I tried tennis, and she loved tennis. Like Kathy said, she loved Nadal. That didn't really work out. So then I started track. She supported that a lot. But during the summer, she was always afraid I'd get out of shape. So we had a weekly race. And we lived 4.5 miles from my high school. So I would have to run there and run a mile around the track. She would have to drive there and walk a mile around the track. But it didn't really matter because when we were done, we got to go to Dairy Queen. Another story, a handful of you have heard, but it was requested on popular demand. When I was a little boy, Judy, Gary, my mom and I, after a big Bronco win, we used to go to the airport to greet the Broncos, get autographs and pictures. And one day we're standing outside on the terminal and 2 Broncos, Paul Smith and another name you might have heard, Lyle Alzado. I'm walking by. I'm, Mr. Alzado, can I have your autograph? He walked right by me. And these 2 very large men get in this tiny little car. They're in the back seat. Luba, you hear, Alzado, you wait. This car, my mom sticks paper in and she says, we pay your salary. So if my son wants an autograph, you're going to give it to him. And she said, another thing. She goes, on home games, when you're doing your warm-ups, I'm always calling you. You could at least wave. The next home game, there we're in our corner, and there's my mom, Alzado! Alzado! This large man turns around. Judy and I were mortified, but there's a little piece of us that, see, she's a badass. I was asked yesterday, and I didn't really know how to answer it. What did I learn from Luba? What did she teach me? All I'd have to say, she said, stay strong, be accountable, know how to love, and know how to accept being loved. And there's something that's always going to stick with me, and I will always miss it.
Casket is going to be lowered. And while that is taking place, we're going to do Kriya, time-honored tradition of tearing clothing in response to the death of a loved one. Today we're going to be using a ribbon as a substitute for clothing. Slightly ironic. Imagine in the ancient world, people didn't have closets filled with multiple outfits. The wardrobe was a very simple thing, and to rip a piece of clothing was a considerable financial investment, as well as an emotionally cathartic moment. We always give people the choice of what they'd like to do, tear an article of clothing or use the ribbon. We're going to be using a ribbon, and a blessing is going to be made. This is considered a sacred moment in which we can recognize the hand of God, the guiding hand of God, as incredulous as that sounds in this particular circumstance. But at the same time, we also express our grief. And that is best expressed in some physical act, and that will be in the tearing of the ribbon, or in some cases, a tearing of actual clothing. A very cathartic moment. And then the family is going to have an opportunity to put some earth into Luba's final resting place. I'll be placing the first couple of shovels in, and I'll be saying a couple of lines from our tradition. After that, the family will come forward. And then anyone here who wishes to fill earth into her resting place will be invited to do so. This is considered chesed shel emet, which in English means an altruistic act of kindness. One that we're doing for someone with no expectation that that person is going to be able to do the same thing for us. And this is considered one of the highest behaviors of kindness, the highest gesture that one could do. And I'm sure that in her own life, Luba also extended herself to people with no expectation that they would do the same for her. So we'll gather together in just a moment. Only for a pair. Ask you to rise if you're able. We're going to make a blessing. We'll ask everyone to answer Amen to the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the world, whom we believe to be the righteous judge and the judge of righteousness. We all say, if you would tear the ribbon a little bit, it's already torn. Yes, tear a little bit. Yashov Afar Al Haaretz Keshahaya. V'haruach Tashuv El Elohim Asher Yitzhak. Thus, we turn the earth as it was. The spirit returns unto God. There are many traditions about placing earth into the grave. Some people will turn the shovel upside down. But one thing we ask is that you don't hand the shovel to the next person. Put the shovel back into the earth, let the person take the shovel on his or her own locomotion.
I know.
While we're continuing to place earth into the grave, I was asked to read a poem. I know this poem well because I used it in a sermon almost 20 years ago. And I was lucky in the aftermath of the sermon. Many rabbis have used this poem and published it as part of their sermons. And many of the rabbis working at synagogues received a letter from a lawyer representing the author of the poem, claiming copyright infringement and royalties. I never included it in the text of the sermon. It is a marvelous poem, and we're here at a cemetery. And sometimes we see on a cemetery the years that someone has lived, the year they were born and the year they died. And this is a poem about something that we see on gravestones. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? You never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, if your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you live your dash? Before the memorial prayer and the words of Kaddish, a couple of announcements, one from me and one from Rabbi Booth. It is Yom Tov officially, and in many communities, Shiva will be delayed until after Yom Tov. Shiva is going to be observed privately after Yom Tov, perhaps in some way, but there is going to be an opportunity for friends of Luba, friends of her family, her children, to visit at the home of Judy and Gary Saltzman, 7606 South Hudson Way, in Centennial, 80122. You're able to make your way to their house following the funeral until this evening, about 8 p.m. And then on Friday and Sunday afternoons from 12 to 4. Gary and Judy and perhaps other children are going to be joining us at BMHBJ for services on Friday evening at 6:15, 6:10 actually, and Saturday morning at 9:45. Anyone else who wishes to join is certainly encouraged to do that. Rabbi Booth has an announcement about a special memorial tribute that's going to be arranged for Luba. Please give him your attention.
So at Kavod Senior Life, we do what we call a Vigil of Remembrance for every single resident who dies while they're living with us, and sometimes after they've lived with us. And this is focused it's for the residents so that they have a chance to process the loss of a community member. So our Vigil of Remembrance for Luba is going to be next Wednesday, and the day after Chag, at 3 p.m. in the afternoon in the shul, which is the second floor of our main building. And you are welcome to join us. 3 p.m. At Kavod. You can contact me if you need further information. Next Wednesday.
We're going to ask Luba's family to rise at this time for the words of the mourner's Kaddish. The family says Kaddish, and we answer Amen at the appropriate times. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah. Yalmad Yivrach Yirutei, Yamlich Malachutei. Chayecho, V'yomecho, V'chayei, V'cho Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala, V'zman Kariv, Yimeru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Mevarach, V'olam, V'lomeo Maya. Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpo'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnasei. V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei V'kudsha B'richu. Le'ela, Mikover Chata V'shirata. Tush B'chata V'nechemata. Da'amiran B'olma V'yimeru Amen. Yehei Shalama Rabbah, Min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru Amen. Oseh shalom v'imroma v'hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru Amen. Please remain standing for the memorial prayer.
I feel so privileged as the cantor, as the chazan, to be able to say Luba's Hebrew name, which is so pretty. I miss the old names that people used to have. My daughters are Shana and Gittel, and Liba is one of those names. I love it. Because it is the holiday of Sukkot, we use a different formula. And this formula is very special because maybe only the tzaddikim, the righteous, get to die during this time. And the prayer asks for them to pray for us. So everything I've heard today kind of fits that. So, Elo haslicho, chanun verachum, chapayim verav chesed, hametzeh chaparat pesha. בהקרבה ישע ומנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת ליבה בת אברהם ורבקה שהלכה לעולמה. אנא בעל הרחמים זכרה לה שערי צדק ואורה, שערי חמלה וחנינה, בסתר כנפיך הסתיריה לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen.
God of forgiveness, you who are gracious and compassionate, patient and abundantly kind, grant infinite rest and your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Luba, the daughter of Avraham and Rivka, who now rests in her eternal home. O merciful one, we ask you to remember the many worthy and righteous deeds she performed in the land of the living. May our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be ever bound up in the bond of our lives. May she ever rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. This does conclude our service. Your presence here was a source of comfort and honor to Luba, and we thank you for coming. You may return to your homes.
I know it. Now